Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
I sure can.
Okay. Thanks so much for joining. So excited to speak with you today.
Of course.
So why don't we kick it off, Lauren? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am the EVP of Client Services at Superfly. So Superfly is an entertainment company. We do events and experiences both for ourselves and for brands. And my role focuses really on brand partnerships within our agency division. So we work with brands to help bring their marketing goals to life through experiential marketing, through monetized experiences around their IP, digital, social, really all of that. So, and I prior to Superfly, I worked at a couple different digital creative agencies, and I actually started my career in music. I was actually an intern for Superfly about 15 years ago.
Really? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I actually helped manage the MySpace page, just date that a little bit. So.
Oh my goodness. Lauren, how wonderful that you started off as an intern. And do you feel like you've come full circle?
Yeah, definitely. When I came back full time, I'd always wanted to work in a full time capacity, but just, waiting for the right opportunity. So it actually happened pretty organically as Superfly started to build out the agency division of their business. And I had been working at agencies. They wanted someone that, understood their roots and their culture, but also knew how to work with brands and what was happening in the agency world. So yeah, definitely felt like it came full circle.
That's amazing. Oh, I love that. I love that story. So, based on the last year that we've had, 2020, this global pandemic, how the world came to a halt, yeah. When do you think live events are going to come back?
So I love that you asked that because they're coming back. This is the exciting time we've all been waiting for as individuals and consumers of experiences. And also, of course, from a business standpoint, we see festivals are starting to announce again. Life is Beautiful in Vegas announced and went on sale last week. I just saw another concert series get announced in Tennessee. And I think Cuomo announced a couple weeks ago that small music venues can open back up with limited capacity. So I think we'll start to see stuff for sure over the summer and then the large scale events in the fall. I think for brands and for beauty, it'll probably take a little bit longer. A lot of brands I think are a little more conservative about how to, do live and get back to live. And a lot of corporations still have strict travel policies about, letting their staff travel. So I think the music and art space will probably drive the return because obviously they depend on it for their livelihood. But then we'll see brands and B2B follow shortly as they see consumers do it safely. The value is still.
Yeah, and Lauren, from your perspective, how do you think the communication plan is going to be impacted or elevated just, as the live events are coming back, but to have consumers feel that, okay, you're going to purchase this ticket, you're going to come into this venue, and you're going to be safe. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, so our Superfly X team has been doing the Friends experience, even through COVID, and we're seeing how important it is to communicate safety. Something that people once didn't really care about or sort of behind the scenes, they just assumed they were going to be kept safe by going to an event, is now something they want front and center. So, it's the second most visited page of our Friends Experience website. We're seeing that in different, so it's going to become a huge part of the communications. I think, what are the safety protocols? What can they expect when they're on site or entering the site? And then I think, you've already seen on ticketing, a lot more transparency around the ability to, get a refund or roll it over to the next year, just so people feel comfortable making that purchase. There's some uncertainty. So I think that's going to be a huge part as people go back, is just having that communication and clarity on what to expect and how they'll be kept safe.
Yeah, no, for sure. And how have you and your team pivoted from live events to virtual events?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's funny, the term virtual events, right? For some of this, it was already happening. The pandemic just sort of brought a new label to it. So think about music festivals, Superfly, we've had live streams at our festivals back to 2009 was when we did the first ever Bonnaroo on YouTube. So we've definitely been doing it, but there's definitely a new lens and sort of expectation around it. So yeah, we've done a lot of virtual events over the summer, and even especially in B2B where, they're not as comfortable going back. And I think some of that will continue, right? There's now this sort of like expectation and learned behavior of, things that I didn't have access to before, whether I didn't have the means to, or I wasn't willing to travel to, I now can experience from afar. So I think that will continue. When we think about like accessibility and inclusivity, kind of hard not to offer that in some capacity to allow a larger audience to experience your event that maybe when it choose to attend or wants to do so, even when they can get back in person.
Right. And Lauren, how have you infused social media into the events that you're doing? And what's, from your perspective, why is that so important?
Yeah, so I think it's always been important, right? You look at something like BravoCon, which we produced in 2019, and it's just an inherent part of the experience. People want to post on social. They want to share this amazing experience that they're having with their fans and their audiences and things like that. But with returning to life and with what's happened over the pandemic, we're really talking about like more of an ecosystemic approach, recognizing that your largest audience likely sits outside the physical attendee. And so really making sure that we're thinking through all three of those components. What's the live experience for someone who's attending? What's the social amplification of that, or how you might experience it, on social or online? And then is there kind of a virtual extension as well now to allow you to have a more in-depth experience of social content?
Oh, I think we lost you. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Am I still here?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. You froze for just a second. Okay. And I have a follow-up question to that.
Sure.
So in my previous life, when I worked at Barclays Center and we did all the live events, the artists and the promoters were always like, we were never, ever allowed from a venue perspective to post anything without the artist or promoter approval. Do you think that post-COVID, and do you think that when large-scale events come back, do you think that those, rules will be a little bit more flexible, or do you think that that's the way that it will always be? I'm just curious, since content now has been so at the forefront from the artist's perspective and them controlling it when they're not at large venues, I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be artists that are super protective of their brand and want to control it. You have artists that have sort of made their way through social and are much more transparent and open to that kind of content. So it's going to vary. But I do think with the pandemic, you had so many music artists that were using social as a way to engage their fans when they didn't have live experiences. So you had all the like Instagram live concerts.
Yeah.
They were really becoming content creators in their own because they didn't have a choice. They were in their living room, and of course they want to create, they want to engage their audience because that's what they do best. So they were finding ways to do it that I think made them more comfortable with kind of lower fi production and kind of being more open and authentic, or maybe where they weren't as comfortable before. So I think it will evolve.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think about, John Legend just comes to mind, watching him on Insta Live in his living room. And I'm thinking, okay, if he was at a concert at Barclays Center, he would never probably allow us to post the stuff. I don't know. It's just different. So I think I'm curious to see how that's all going to evolve. And then my other question, from a live events perspective, do you think that there's going to be a hybrid approach into when, we return to, large scale concerts? Or how do you think that experience is going to be different, if at all, post pandemic?
Yeah, I do. I do think the expectation is there now that maybe wasn't there before. Like I was saying, like some of the festivals, they've had live stream kind of virtual components, how you want to label it, even pre-pandemic. So I think some of those will definitely continue. I think you're seeing people sort of like elevate them and bring in new technology to really bring those live or virtual experiences about. So I think we'll start to see hybrid. I think for B2B, there's definitely more of an expectation that I can now attend a conference remote and still get a lot of the value and network and not have to travel. So I think it'll vary based on event, but I think you'll definitely see that kind of hybrid approach.
Yeah, I'm curious. It's also, I also think that it's making producers and just thinking forwardly in terms of the consumer needs, right? Because consumer behavior over the past year has changed so much that it's almost like anticipating what your fans or your customers are going to want.
Yeah, I think we'll start to see more integration too between like the virtual experience and the live, and allowing people to have more control over what's happening in the live experience through virtual, even if they're not there in person. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I'm so fascinated just in terms of the planning process and thinking of, not only the talent, but, their whole experience, and then the consumer experience and that journey and how that's all going to come together. Because I don't think, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean, I just don't think that we're going to pick up where we left off, March 12th of 2020, when, we all go re-enter the world. What do you think?
No, I mean, I think there's definitely some learned behaviors too that are going to stick around. So there's obviously the virtual component. We've now tuned into things we never could attend before. But there's also, the on-site experience of, now you walk in to get your haircut and you get your temperature checked and you don't even think twice about it. Like we like to talk about, 9/11 and post 9/11 with TSA, there was this new behavior of like, you want me to take my shoes off in public? Like, this is so weird. And now you don't think about it. You walk up, you take your shoes off, and then you're on your way. And so, there's definitely some of these safety protocols with, digital apps that track your negative test or your vaccination status, that I think will stick around. It'll be interesting to see what sticks and what doesn't. Like, will we get our temperature checked every time we enter a concert for the future? Definitely for the foreseeable future, but we'll see after that. And then I think just this move of more of a contactless consumer journey. So even pre-pandemic, half the time you weren't printing out your ticket to whatever event or experience, but I think that will even be less the case going forward, digital payments and things like that. Mm-hmm. I think those will definitely stick because there's, inherent consumer fit to that as well.
Yeah.
I don't think we're just falling back exactly where we were a year ago.
Okay, great. I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear that, Lauren. So, I mean, you have had a tremendous career. I mean, kudos to you for everything that you've accomplished. What would be the 3 career insights that you would share with our audience today that's tuning in?
Yeah, I love that you asked this because it made me think for a minute. So I would say first, early on in your career, if you can, I think it's really important to focus on passions and building skills. And I want to recognize that not everyone has, the privilege or the ability to make such fluid job decisions. But I think really focusing on those 2 things, because if you're passionate about what you're doing or what you're learning or this, you're going to go the extra mile. You're going to be willing to work late and kind of get more experience. And if you're also thinking about the skills you're building, those skills will transfer no matter what industry you decide you want to go in next or where you want to take it. Later in life, you're going to have so many other things to consider with your career in terms of maybe location or pay. You probably have to be a little more picky about the choices you make. So early on, just focusing on and kind of building those skills. You want me to keep going? My second one?
Yes, keep going. Yeah.
One is like a pseudo productivity tip, but it's worked really well for me. And it's thinking about your tasks and your to-dos based on what you need to achieve them. So that might be like the mental state that you need to be in, or the brain power that you need. It might be that you front of your computer, and maybe you can do it on the go, or you need to be with a peer or a manager. But organizing in that way really has allowed me to be efficient in whatever space, mental or physical, I'm in at that time. I like to think of like it's all part of the same pie. There's really, unfortunately, no like work and personal life anymore. And if I'm in the best mental state and it's a Saturday morning to like crank out a deck, like that's probably the best time for me to do it versus, if it's a Tuesday morning and I'm fried and I want to knock up some online shopping, like I'll do it. So, organizing the list based on what you need mentally and physically, I think can really help you crank through stuff when you're in the best mindset.
Oh, I love that. I read not so long ago that work is now you work where you live. So I agree that those lines have completely blended. So there is no separation.
Yeah. I like to say I feel like I sleep where I work because I think that's
that's a good one too. Sleep where you work. I love that.
Yeah.
And what would be your third insight?
And my third is to own your career. So I think sometimes we really rely on managers and mentors. And if you're lucky, you'll have some great managers and mentors that really care about your growth and want to support you in that. But not everyone has that. You're definitely not going to have it at every moment in your career. So no one's going to have more stake in your career success than yourself. So, I think what that means is if you want feedback, ask for feedback. If you want to try a new task or a new responsibility or learn about a new role, ask for that or take it upon yourself to meet with that person. Or if you feel like you're not paid what you're worth, like meet with a recruiter, understand your value within the industry, just really taking ownership of it. Because again, there's not always going to be someone there that's thinking about you first.
Yeah, that's also a really, really good one because I sometimes think that especially when you're starting off, you're relying on other people to take you along.
Yeah.
So that's a really great one. And I have one of the things that we've talked about during a lot of these conversations, Lauren, is we've had other guests say that you should have your own personal board of directors, right? People. So what are your thoughts around that?
No, I love that. I mean, look, I've relied on so many people in my career, whether it's mentors or amazing managers that I've had, or even friends, just to like build me up or bounce ideas off of. I'm part of a women's executive group, which has been amazing. So yeah, if you can have those people that can support you and sort of guide you, I love that.
Yeah, I love that too, and it's something that I keep hearing more and more of. So that it's shifting from the mentor to the personal, board of directors because so many people are in such different places in their career right now because of this pandemic that it's really making us all think very differently about our approach.
Yeah, I love that. I saw a meme maybe a little bit ago that was like behind every successful woman, there is a group chat, like a group text, which is so true of just like building each other up and venting. And, I think that's kind of like the same thing that can be your board of directors. Like it doesn't have to necessarily be a professional network too, right? It could be people that are going to guide you and support you in whatever you're doing.
Yeah, no, for sure. I love it. Lauren, this has been great. I know that our other friend Lauren is here tuning in. So shout out to her for connecting us. I'm so happy that she did because you have a great story and I'm glad that you were able to share it with us today and with our audience. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see everyone here on Thursday for our next lunchtime conversation. Thanks, Lauren.
Bye.
Bye.